So before we get started reconstraining this, let's look at where the constraints are in our tree. I feel that probably people take it, it probably takes a little while for people to get used to watching the tree all the time. I try to say it, I try to remind everybody whenever I think about it, but think about part design. How many times did you make an entire part and your tree looked like this? Because you never even opened it up, right? Is that a big deal? Maybe, maybe not, but you should be keeping an eye on it. So we'll open this up and let's see where things go. So here is my 3D shape. There's the part body right there, and there's the pad in the sketch underneath of it. Okay, so this is base. And then this is top right here. Focus on this carefully. Open this up. There's pad, there's sketch right there. Okay. Now, on the root, the top of the tree here, that's kind of weird to call the top of the tree the root, but that is what it is. If we come up here and then follow this main line down, right, we see we got base, we got top, and then down here is our engineering connections. So the engineering connections have to do with the product, with the assembly, as you can imagine. So we open these things up, and inside of it, it says that I have a rigid constraint for the top, and I have another fixed constraint for the base. That's where the things went that we made. Okay. In V5, you would often see a lot more of these. You would see each. So remember, we made a couple different offset constraints, and we made a contact constraint. You would see those listed out. In here, this new idea of an engineering connection, this, if I double click on it, it opens up my window, and then my window has a contact offset. You see? Okay. So check that out, double click on it, take a look at it. The other thing I want to point out just for right now, because it's going to be probably an issue at some point in time along the way, after you get done making one of these and you hit OK, it locks it. And that's a little bit confusing sometimes, because you want to get in here and you want to edit something and it won't let you. So you have to know to come up here and unlock it, and now I could add constraints to this thing if I wanted to. Okay, just hit that. All right, so that's what I want to explain first. The next thing we're going to do is, well, get rid of them. So we'll find our engineering constraints right here and delete what's in there. Now, the fixed one, let's go ahead and leave that, okay? Because honestly, I did that last, but that's something you do almost first. So anytime you're making an assembly, say we made a car chassis and you built it and you stuck it out here in space, that's the thing that everything's going to get kind of stuck to. You think about it like that. Is this the main base that everything comes to, or does it go to something else? So I'd take the chassis, and right off the bat, I would fix it in space, and that would stick it here, and then everything else would get stuck to that, okay? So we'll leave it. I want to talk about this little red thing for a second, and I don't want to talk about too many side topics, but that means a thing. We have our icons, and then we have these, like this one up here. They mean different things, and you can look that up around at places. There's a help file in CATIA, but it means it just needs to be updated. So if you're ever curious, because a red swirly thing kind of looks maybe like something's broken, it's just saying that something hasn't been updated. And if you hit update, then it goes away. We'll talk about that as time goes by, okay? So let's mess this thing up again. So I go here, and now can I move it? Yes, I can, because I got rid of my constraints. So I'm going to move it over, and then I'm going to move it up, and then I'm going to give it a twist, move it around here, and give it a twist. Okay. There you go. By the way, if you're still using the view buttons to move yourself around instead of getting used to the mouse like this, get used to the mouse. Okay. So we're going to hit a check box there, and so we like that. So how else could I constrain this? Well, before we did a contact, there's almost no getting around that, but there is a little bit. I'll show you that. And then lining up our corners, well, instead of lining up the faces here, what if we were to line up these lines? Okay, so let's go with that kind of an idea. Okay, so I will, remember I could go to engineering connection, or if I wanted to, I could click right here and I could go there to contact, but there's an arrow right there and it has all the other stuff. So I'm going to hit an offset. Offset, right? That's not a contact, but I can pick this and this, and now it has an offset of a certain value. Now, we can do a couple things like this, or I could just click in the background. It's okay. I don't have to worry about that right now. The problem with this, you might have noticed already, is since the window's not here, I couldn't type anything in it. So remember this. So the contact constraint was two things touching. Two things touching. There is no value to put in there. Touch, that's it. Offset had an entry for a value. Is it those two faces are parallel and they're 0 apart? Or are they 1 apart or 3 apart or whatever? So you could come over here and the planar 3 here, you see that one? You double click on it, it's going to bring up your window. Or you could double click on the offset, but it's going to get you the same thing. Okay. If you're tricky, you can kind of get into here, but it's tricky because they're touching right now. And you might be wondering, you know, what the hell am I trying to do? But if I get in here, see those arrows? I can grab this, I can bring this up. And then if I can get right there, and pause, don't double click, just wait for a moment, then I could type something in there. That could be fine. I don't like that. It's not working for me, but that is a way that you could get a number in there. I think by far the best way to do this is going to be just come over here and double click this. Okay. Now, if you think about everything that I just did, you pick your own workflow in this case, but I think if it was a contact constraint where I don't put a value in, maybe I'll do that with the shortcut, you know, where I just click on the face and say contact. But if I need to enter a value in there, I think I'm probably going to come down here and go for the engineering connections. So I get my window. So if I wanted another constraint for this connection, the green to the yellow, like I just said, you should come over here and edit this one right here that says planar 3 on it, okay? But you could come down here and you could pick a new engineering definition, and I could say, okay, I want this one to this one. You're going to get an error. Well, you're going to get this. You're going to get a warning here. But here's my point before I explain this. If I were to say create new, then you're going to get another engineering connection in the tree that itself has an actual constraint underneath of it that is something like an offset and what have you. And then you're going to have another one, then you're going to have another one, and it gets messy. So the topic here is about, you know, being messy. We don't want to have all the loose constraints in the tree. Like I just said, if the green thing is touching the yellow thing, all of that interaction, all of those constraints should be within the one engineering connection, okay? So I'll do that. I'll do that in a second, but since this little box popped up, I want to just tell you about this. When you go to make a new one, it's smart enough to realize that the other one is already here. It says, hey, we already got planar 3 here. You're trying to do something between the same things again. Enrich, that's always kind of a funny word. Would you like to enrich it? This just means, would you like to edit the one that already exists? Update that one, or would you like to make a new one? If I say create new, I'm going to get a new engineering connection down in here with an offset inside of it. Bad, messy. So watch this. If I hit enrich, then it opens up. Notice, right? This is planar 3 again. Okay. I'm going to close this because I think it's probably confusing to just jump around that much what I just did. Okay, so that was just for the explanation of how and why we have these engineering connections. So what I want to do is I want to go to planar 3 and double click it so I get that window back. This is, don't worry that it's called planar. Okay, it's just currently the type in it that sort of changes as time goes by. But this is the container, right? Container, the window that's going to hold all the constraints for these two objects. So I want to add a new one. So I have to unlock this, and then all of my features are back, okay? So what do I do? Well, last time we used this offset one, and I picked this face to that face, but this time I'm going to use a coincidence. So remember coincidence? That is in Sketcher when we put a point on top of a point. That's a coincidence. Well, the similar thing here, kind of, is a line to a line. In other programs, they might call that collinear. So I pick this circle and a circle, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this right there, this line. Make sure you don't get the face, get just that line. So I've got that, that's in there, that edge, to this edge. And look at that. So now those two, see like this, and see the icon? It's the same. It's a circle and a circle. So they are coincident right now. So that works out really good. And then to get the rest of the thing going on here, I go over here and I pick coincident, and then I pick that edge, and I pick that edge, and those two line up. And that's it. So that has, now that's locked it. So we should have no degrees of freedom by doing that. We did an offset for the face, and we took two corners and we locked them together. You don't need to do all four, right? Because with two of them stuck, it can't twist or anything. So if I go to top here and I check my degrees of freedom, there are no degrees of freedom. Okay. So last thing, what if I go over here to three little dots and I go to delete. So I get rid of one of these. I hit OK and proceed. That arrow is telling me if you do this, you will not have a certain amount of degrees of freedom. So let's see if that's the case. So I grab this, and I can't lift it up or down. We know that because that's going to be that offset that we had. And there we go. So I can twist it around there, you see? So how many degrees of freedom? What's going on now? Well, if I go check it out, you're going to see that it's going to tell me that I have some freedom, but it's going to give me a little bit of a thing here, a little bit of a graphic. So it tells me you have a rotation free, and it shows you right where it's at. It's saying that there's still some ability to rotate around this point right here. You need to fix that. Okay, so that's how you use that tool. So then I could go back through here, and I could go back to my rigid, and I could unlock it because it always locks, and I could pick this one here and that one there, line them up, hit OK. So that's probably it for the block lab. That's a lot of information in one first very simple exercise. It seems like it's always the case because, like I said a moment ago, there's so many things we're going to run into. I mean, we start with the most simplest assembly possible, but you know, a lot of things to go through to explain. Our next labs, I can't say that they're not going to be you know, complicated, but it's going to build on all the stuff that we just talked about so far.